After long and thoughtful consideration, I've concluded that I want to be around people who do know what they're talking about and do know what they're doing, and I want to be around people who do not know what they're talking about and who do not know what they're doing. Aligned with my last episode, these can broadly be categorized as winners and losers. The people who know what they're doing and know what they're talking about are going to probabilistically win. And people who do not know what they're talking about and do not know what they're doing are going to probabilistically lose. But here's the good news. Things are fluid. Things are fluid along with being no-bads, non-binary and domain-specific. So things being fluid and no-bads has a few important implications. The first is that things are just the way they're supposed to be in this moment. In this moment, things are just the way they're supposed to be, including our disapproval or disenchantment or disillusionment or disappointment. It's funny, the first spiritual book I ever read said, we are so in love with our illusions that the word disillusionment is a bad thing. We want to stay illusioned. We don't want to get disillusioned. But this podcast is for people who recognize the absurdity of that situation and who therefore are informed, know what they're talking about and know what they're doing enough that they want to be disillusioned. Now, to go back to our original point, this podcast is also for the people who want to stay illusioned. With one caveat. If you don't want to be disillusioned right now you want to stay illusioned, but you can kind of see the point of being disillusioned, how that can actually be helpful and advisable and practical and pragmatic and profitable and fruitful, like it can yield results to be disillusioned, but you're not there yet, that's okay. This podcast is also for you. You must be this tall to enjoy the ride. So that's the requirement. The qualification, the properties one must have. Tough word to find. The properties one must have to really get the most, really get anything out of this podcast. Because remember, everything is bait. Everything is boring, amusing, interesting, or transformative. So for this podcast to be amusing, informative, or transformative, and then not be boring, because if it's boring, you're going to tune out, you got to either want to be disillusioned because you want to face the facts, or be in a situation where you're currently still interested in having illusions maintained, but you're starting to see the cracks. You're starting to see the cracks in that approach. In that approach to life. So let's go back to this notion that things are the way they're supposed to be, including our disapproval of how things are. Well, let's say I don't know what I'm talking about with respect to something, right? Because it's non-binary and domain specific. So relative to someone else, relative to some expert in nuclear physics, I don't know what I'm talking about in nuclear physics. That's non-binary and domain specific, right? The non-binary part means I know something about nuclear physics, but nothing close to someone who's studied it for, 10 hours, 100 hours, 1,000 hours, not close to someone who's actually done nuclear physics. I don't know that much, but I probably know more about physiology and airway anatomy than they do, for instance. Just because mastery and expertise track with familiarization. Familiarization tracks with exposure. So who I am is a product of what I've been exposed to. That goes for all of us. And to say that I have been exposed to exactly the things that I was supposed to have been exposed to is really a declaration of faith. But not just faith, it's also a declaration of confidence. See, there's a bunch of words: faith, confidence, logic, statistics, probability. These are all very closely related to each other. Faith and evidence are not mutually exclusive of each other. And they overlap in the domain that we call expectation. Expectation, assumption, and anticipation are all built into our neurochemistry. They're all built into our culture, into our norms, into our morality. We have expectations of each other. We experience ourselves as entitled to certain things based on the culture we live in, the relationships we have. And so when we bring it back to people who know what they're talking about and know what they're doing, and people who don't know what they're talking about and don't know what they're doing, my expectation is the people who don't know what they're talking about and don't know what they're doing want to know what they're talking about and want to know what they're doing, and do not want to stay in the delusional and illusory state of one. They do know what they're talking about and they do know what they're doing. If that's an illusion and a delusion, my expectation is that when we find ourselves in those states, we don't want to stay there. And two, very importantly, that we do not use the postmodern, relativist, deconstructionist escape hatch that lets us slip out the back with the notion that no one knows what they're talking about and no one knows what they're doing, and therefore it's a flat land of value without any hierarchy, and so no one has anything to teach anyone. This to me is an incredibly stupid and common conclusion that I myself have also fallen prey to. But this program is designed to call it out, to shine a light on it, in order to identify it working, often in our subconscious, and to smoke it out so we can neutralize it in the name of progress, in the name of evolution, science, success, spirituality, expansion, maturation, development, sophistication, refinement, filtration, and fabrication, which is also the name of an essay that I will invite you to peruse at a later date: filtration and fabrication. So my expectation is that people who do not know what they're talking about and do not know what they're doing identify that about themselves based on what? Based on failure, right? We said, if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what you're talking about, you're likely to fail. You're more likely to fail than to win. And if you do win, it's based on luck, and luck runs out. If it's not based on a system, it becomes, it's exhausted. It gets exhausted. And so a system is a way in which someone knows what they're talking about and knows what they're doing. When you have a system of thought, a system of finance, a system of social interactions. So we're talking about physical systems, emotional systems, mental systems, financial systems, social systems, and moral systems. Speaking in terms of systems is very helpful in terms of literacy, right? Language is a system, when you're literate, you understand the system, and we say you have command over the English language. That's great. How about numeracy? Many people don't even know the word numeracy. But if you have numeracy, if you are numerate, you have command over numbers. Command, of course, being non-binary and domain specific. But those who have command of anything know what they're talking about and know what they're doing. So let's get to those people. Those people, my expectation of those people, and when I say those people, I want you to remember everyone has things about which they know what they're talking about and know what they're doing. And everyone has things about which they don't know what they're talking about and don't know what they're doing. So when I say those people, I just mean I don't even have the English. I don't have enough command of the English language to describe this, but the complicated way to say is when you find yourself in the state where you don't know what you're talking about or don't know what you're doing, often based on, losing, my expectation, the kinds of people I want to spend my time with, the kinds of people I want to encourage us all to be, are the kinds of people who then go after either, outsourcing the expertise, which is fine, but then you gotta trust the experts, or and shut up, right? And don't add confusion, don't add noise and confusion, and don't contaminate the signal with uneducated opinions and the notion that expertise and mastery don't matter. Get out of here with all that noise and listen to the experts. And as for the experts, when you find yourself in a situation where you do know what you're talking about and you do know what you're doing, my expectation is that you both practice what you preach, fine, but preach what you practice, okay? Sell a person a fish, they eat for a day. Teach them to fish, they eat for a lifetime. So I expect people who know what they're doing and know what they're talking about to offer both products to the market. Both the done-for-you solution, where you do the thinking for them, you do the action for them, you catch the fish for them, you prepare it, you fillet it, you grill it, and you serve it, fine, that's one product. But then also teach and preach and share your wisdom, your experience, your stories, your anecdotes, your confidence, along with whatever caveats you need to make yourself feel comfortable. But if you know what you're talking about and you know what you're doing, you should be doing it. You should be showing people that you know how to do it. And if you don't know how to do anything, and you don't know what you're talking about anything, then you need education. Then you need education, training, experience. Because ultimately, we do not have the right to live simply conferred upon us. At some point in life, we are expected to earn our living, as opposed to living on the largesse of others' goodwill and charity. The expectation is that we ultimately become the ones, we ultimately voluntarily assume the role of those upon whom others depend. So for others to depend on us requires us to know what we're talking about and know what we're doing, at least to some degree, because it's non-binary, and at least in some domain, because it's domain specific. And the good news is, again, it's fluid, which means that we can go, right? We can go from not knowing what we're talking about and not knowing what we're doing to knowing what we're talking about and knowing what we're doing. So my expectation for myself, and I certainly need this reminder on a regular basis, is to get off my ass, to circulate, to talk, to not just sit still, to not rest on my laurels, to not coast. You know, the people I know who are in their 40s and don't have to work anymore still work because they love life, they love people, they're possessed, they're obsessed. And that is always going to be a minority of people. That's okay. But since the global population is growing, even 1% of the global population is still going to be an increasing number of total people. And so because it's fluid and we tend to forget these principles that I am trying to make as simple as possible and yet as powerful and impactful as possible, these need reminders. And we tend to forget these dynamics and these mechanisms. My entire purpose with these presentations is to stabilize and to ramify and to cement for both myself and others in a way that I know is impermanent. Just like, you know, you got to brush your teeth several times a day. You got to eat every day. You got to do maintenance and repairs on buildings, on homes, on structures. That doesn't just go for physical structures. It goes for physical structures, emotional structures, mental structures, financial structures, social structures, and moral structures. Entropy is doing its work on all fronts. And so it's our, it's our work. And we can do it gracefully. We can do it gratefully. We can do it with dignity. We can do it with love for humanity and love for the game. And love for the work. And that's what I'm here for. But it is easy to slip into resentment, bitterness, hopelessness, futility, and nihilism. But for me, hearing these ideas on a regular basis, repeating these ideas, processing them, digesting them, metabolizing them, how can I put it? Rehashing, rehashing them is really just such a fulfilling way to spend my time, energy, attention, and money. So I hope you feel the same way. If you stayed with me this whole time, then you obviously do. And I got nothing but love. Hope you have a great day.